welcome to another edition of the Shirlma Show. With us today in the house is no other person than Nsoh Fonkwa Elvis. Call him the Agronomist. Welcome to the Shirlma Show.
Thank you very much.
It's really a pleasure having you. And to think that you left Tico to be here with us, we are really glad you're here.
Thank you very much.
So you mentioned the fact that it's like that most kind of like agricultural students are in the offices, right? So my question would be, how do you get them out of the offices to actually be sawing their hands and doing the work?
Okay. All right. First of all, the issue here is that when most people are going to agri schools, they are going in because they heard that it's $1 trillion kind of profession, and most of the times they think that when they go there, upon graduation, they'll just have jobs. So when they go there, at the end of the day, they see that things really don't work out the way they are. And so just a handful of them that usually have that strong passion for the field, that usually go back to the field to practice what they do. So talking about seeing how we can remove them and bring them back into the stuff is, for me, we need to help those who are already in the field. So people who are already soiling their hands, who are already establishing stuff in the field. But if the government can come in, if organizations can come in and give them a push, of course not for free, it can be technical push, it can be financial push, so that the world can know them and they can make money out of what they're doing. If we do that, these lazy guys, these guys who really don't want to soil their hands, will see what is coming out from the farm, and they'll be forced to come and join us in the field. That's what I think.
I love that. So we're talking about actually having these agricultural students, right?
Yes.
So now what happens is that most institutions are beginning to realize the importance of agriculture and are kind of offering agriculture as part of the courses, right, in their institutions, right?
Yes.
Now my question is, how do we ensure that these agricultural students are well grounded into every aspect? Because remember that when you go out there and you start practicing something like agriculture, it's not just about the agriculture itself.
Yes.
You need to understand business, you need to understand the environment in which you're operating. So what can be done by these institutions to actually kind of like produce well-grounded farmers, for instance?
First of all, the thing is, when most people hear of agriculture, they think of farm. Maybe they think of planting cassavas, planting corn, beans, and so on and so forth, which in reality that's not what it is. Agronomy is a very complex field that, like you said, it needs the marketing part of it, it needs the technical part of it, communication, and so on and so forth. So for these institutions to scale up, they need not just to teach on the practicals. Now the technology is coming out powerfully. We equally need to introduce marketing into agriculture. So these schools should equip themselves with sophisticated marketers who don't teach only about theoretical marketing, but maybe taking them down to the field to see how it works, seeing what is going on in the US, seeing what's going on in the West. And then we see how we can inculcate this in our own institutions. So if the technical aspect can be constructed in a very nice way, like machines should be in school, not just that they're teaching agronomy there, but they have the machines that they can actually practice on it. They have the fertilizers, they have the quality seeds, and then go to the field. They go to the field often to see how they can practice one or two stuffs. That way, I think the technical aspect will be good. And then they go to the market. What does the market need? Because you don't just go and start producing beans, you don't just go and start producing stuffs, you need to produce in order to sell. The people need to, the farmers, that's what I say, farmers, those are the students also. They need to have in mind that you sell before you produce it. It's not because you have passion for corn that you just go and start producing corn. Where will you sell it? So these marketers will come in place and search for, maybe partner with brasseries, partner with other companies, and then they say, okay, the markets are good. We need this quantity of corn to be produced. We need this, and now the technical guys say, okay, we have this type of machines to implement. And when we associate all of these stuff now, we see how the things can go very fast.
So some people actually say that most of the times it's good to concentrate on something that you're passionate about, something that can be fun to you, right?
Yes.
So how do we actually make agriculture fun?
All right, that's a very good question. First of all, it's for us to sensitize the population, to make people understand that agriculture is not a dirty job. Because whenever you look at a farmer, when people think of a farmer, They look at one mama that's coming back from the farm, or one papa that's coming back from the farm. And because of that, most of the times people tend to look at it, you know, you can ask a 5-year kid that, what do you want to be in the future? And the 5-year kid tells you that I want to be a farmer. Nah. So now the youth can, if they engage into farming, if they engage into agriculture, not just because of the money, of course the passion should be there, people will see and they will tend to they will divert their energy to that sector. And by so doing, the other people who maybe they were the laggards will follow, and by so doing it will become more and more interesting, you know. And if people are more conscious of the fact that maybe they need a farmer 3 times a day, and of the fact that one of the richest there are farmers in the world, you know, so you attract more people to come and maybe not only invest, but to come and practice the field. And like one lady there in Bamenda said, that we need to make agriculture sexy. So we must not go to the farm with funny clothes and so on and so forth. You know, we need to have uniforms. You know, the other day I was coming back from Libe, and there's this farm around Mutengene. When I saw the cucumbers when they were growing there, I was like, wow, this is good. So I went in with my shirt and we took some pictures with the farmer. And everyone was like, so guy, you did from farm with your Ghana shirt? I said, yes, of course, this is how we need to do it. And I think that people will be interested in agriculture.
Wow, thank you.
Thank you.
More with Nsoh Fonkwa Elvis after the break. If you're just joining us today on the Shirlma Show, guess what? Nsoh Fonkwa Elvis is in the house with us. So Elvis, let's talk a little bit about farm inputs, okay? Yeah, so what's the relationship between kind of like a proper farm management and a good harvest?
All right, like it's often said that garbage in, garbage out. Yeah, so with the soil, if you do not manage your soil so well, you are not going to have good output. Yeah, so when we talk about farm inputs, it starts right from the fertilizers, the seeds, the fertilizers, the insecticides, fungicides. It can be organic or inorganic. Yeah, we're equally looking into the equipment. That's the tractors, if we have one, or the maize seeders, and so on and so forth. So it's not all about having a fertile soil, because when they say my people there in the South will say that no, this soil is so fertile, we're going to plant plantains. You know, CDC is doing this here, of course we can do the same here. What the fields understand is that there is what they call a soil test. So before they cultivate on large surface areas, they need to take some samples from the soil, they send it to the lab. And so from the lab, there is a good lab there in Cham. I think the sample is about 25,000, and maybe you need just about 3 samples a hectare. And that's only 5,000. And from that information, because the soil nutrients will be given, the content of the soil will be given, and from that soil nutrient content, we'll know exact amount of fertilizers, exact amount of foliar fertilizers to apply. And that alone can reduce us the cost of production. And so when all these things are put in order, not forgetting quality seeds, because that's another key thing that's really clicking us here in Cameroon. We have very poor seeds, people buy any stuff and they just plant and they expect the things to do well. So when you associate, these good farming practices with those seeds, we are very certain that we are going to have a good harvest.
Well, we're talking about good seeds. Where can they get good seeds?
Very good. They are certified phytosanitary shops in Boya, here in Douala, that you can always get quality seeds from. And when you can get them equally from MINADE, Ministry of Agriculture. So if you can go closer to the Chief of Post, it's very certain that they can link you up to quality seeds. So people need to come closer to the government for them to scale up. So that is it.
Oh, okay. Tell me a little bit about some of the malpractices that farmers are not yet getting. Like, for instance, we have some farmers that maybe are actually doing that they're used to certain habits, that maybe these are not necessarily good habits, but they're not even aware that these are actually bad habits. So what are some of these habits that you can point out?
Okay, the very first issue there is, I think, is the issue of poor conception. because of farming in general, because like cultivating maize on a very poor soil, maybe just looking at the soil you might think that it's poor, and maybe it's poor, and they think that fertilizers are bad, and they don't buy those fertilizers. They say that it causes cancer, and I totally agree with them. Anything what makes something good or bad is actually the dosage. Food is good, but if you eat too much, it becomes a problem. So people need to understand first that fertilizers are good, but they need to understand which dose to apply on which crop. So if they can understand that small idea, I think it will be good, because it will help not only the farmers to reduce their costs, it will only help the consumers, because we are eating it, they just carry it and they pour it that much. That's how the residues will remain in the plants, and we are going to come and consume them. The second issue that I think farmers are getting completely wrong is how to use pesticides. Because down here in the south, that is southern part of Cameroon, we have, when I talk about south, I mean center, littoral, and northwest, southwest, west. Down here, farmers are not literate. So most of the time they don't read the label before going into the field. And so maybe they can just carry the pesticides with their hands and pour in the can. At the end of the day, it's a big issue to their health. Now, the other issue is that they just go and they start cultivating without looking for a market. And so at the end of the day, they have produce, but there is nobody to buy. Recently, I was in one village in the southwest, Moko village, and the farmers were coming towards me and asking, Elvis, we have cassava. Like, we have so much cassava in the farm, and we don't have where to sell. Nobody's coming for them. And I was like, I think this is a problem that if the right heads come together, we will solve it together. So those are some key issues that farmers are going through. Well, issues of bad roads and so on and so forth, we know that free. To the farmers, health, poor usage of phytosanitary products is key. Yeah.
So, but when you mentioned the fact that you said that maybe the chemicals themselves are not that bad, but now what I see is that every year also we have the introduction of maybe different chemicals coming from different manufacturers and different places. So maybe my question would be, is it advisable to use a particular type of chemical, fertilizer, I don't know, be it pesticides? Is it important for them to be able to use it for a particular length of time before changing to another manufacturer, or it's okay for you to change them every year?
No, say it's good to change them, because first of all, when we come down to insecticides and fungicides, you realize that we have problems linked to resistance. It's like you're versed with paracetamol, and each time you take paracetamol, you'll be okay for some time. But after, let's say, 1 to 5, 10 years, you realize that maybe you have headache, you take the paracetamol, but it doesn't solve your problem. You might need to shift to another painkiller. It's the same stuff with insects. So when you keep using a specific molecule, a specific active ingredient in your farm, for a long, let's say if the actual time is 3 years. It's 3 years. For 3 years, there is that high tendency that those insects, those fungi, those nematodes, they will develop resistance to that active ingredient. So there will be now the urgent need for you to change the active ingredient, to come with another molecule. Don't get it twisted. Most of the times, farmers change the name. So maybe there is this product in the market that has, let's take for the case of glyphosate acid, which is a herbicide, and they keep using it year in, year out. At a certain moment in time, another company will come with that same active ingredient, but maybe they will change their name to, instead of putting Glycot, for example, they will put something like Finish. And now the farmer is moving from Glycot to Finish, but not knowing that the active ingredients inside those stuff, they are the same. So we are not talking about the brand names, we are talking about the molecules that are inside. So these farmers need to be educated so that they can know that these crops, even though the Glycot that they were using, because that's what they usually do, even though the Glycot that they were using was good, there is still the urgent need for them to change, to go to another molecule. And so that is it. That's how it works in the field.
This is good learning for me. So one interesting fact that when I was reading about you, that you mentioned is the fact that almost 70% of Cameroonians kind of like are farmers, should I say so, or somehow are involved in agriculture.
Yeah.
But to you, it's kind of like, it's not an interesting percentage.
Sure.
So you feel that this percentage should be reduced to 30. So tell me a little bit about this.
All right. Yeah, a lot of people reach me and they were asking about that. What are you saying? We are totally farmers and we are so good. Yeah. When I was reading on the agriculture in the US, I realized that just about 5% of the population is actively involved in agriculture in the United States. And when you go to other developed countries, you see that the percentage is equally small. Yeah. But when it comes to us back here in Cameroon, we are seeing a situation where 70% of the people are relying on agriculture. It is a good indication that we are doing it wrongly. Yes, so there are a lot of people there, but at the same time, go look at the statistics, the amount of money we are spending to import corn for Brazzaville to produce beer for its consumers, the amount of money that we are spending to import meat and soybean and many other stuffs, it's alarming. We are unable to even feed ourselves. Yes. And so, even though 70% of the population is involved in agriculture, you still realize that the population is increasing by 3% and food production is increasing just by 2%. So we are still unable to meet up. It means there is something that we are not doing well. So to me, we need to, why is it that the population is at 70 and we are unable to produce? So number one, the people who are involved in agriculture, most of them, they have not been to school. So they are just doing it to survive, just struggling to look for something to eat, and still they're unable. So to me, point number one is that majority of these farmers, they have not been to school. And so because of that fact, they keep doing things the wrong way. They keep doing things the wrong way, and at the end of the day, we cannot meet up with demand for food. And so if we are to scale up, we need to invite the learned people into the field. We need to invite not just professionals, but equally investors. So the investors need to step in and work along with professionals now, so that they can maybe scale up on a specific type of food, specific market, and by so doing we can cut down importation. To me, point number two is that the manufacturers need to step in. They need to produce small hand machines. Like, I was so happy the other time that I was in Boya and I saw what Mr. Teke Samuel was doing with the farmhouse. So he is trying to import small hand machines that he can use to plant corn. And these are things that farmers need. And when these things, they're not expensive. I saw something like 45,000, like wow. So if somebody has 45,000, he can use to plant hectares of corn. And with our own funny topography, but with those machines, we can manage them on our own topography, and I think we can build something that will move us to a higher echelon. So those are just those two factors, but the government can step in. Like I earlier said, that if they support the few professionals who are in the field, other professionals out there who maybe wanted just to sit in the office and speak a lot of high-sounding grammar will come down and meet us in the field, and we'll keep scaling up with production.
When you're talking, right, I could actually visualize what I saw in Vietnam.
Okay.
Actually, when you go to a Vietnamese farm, you really enjoy it. It's kind of like they're more joyous, they're more relaxed, because the farming is not as tedious as the one that we see in Africa, And when you see a farmer there, an average farmer there, you discover that they're kind of happy. Most farmers here always look so stressed and so on. Yeah, I'm telling you. So I really get you. But another thing that I was wondering is, okay, if 70% of the population is involved in farming, right, and you want to push this to 30%, so what happens to the other 40%? Training. Okay.
So I think the goal is not just come and kick out our mamas and our papas that are there, but we can equally bring them together and teach them. Like so far I've been able to organize 4 seminars with farmers in Mondoni village, teaching them how to use products on cocoa, telling them that there are new molecules in the market, telling them about creating awareness about the fake products that are available in the market, and maybe they had a lot of attachment to the old brands, and those old brands are no more there. And people around, some of our own brothers and sisters here in the country, they are making, these fake stuffs and they are selling to these farmers. And because they love the old brand, they are still going in for it. So I said, no, this is how you can test that this product is effective. When you take an insecticide, look for one insect and pour it on and see how it behaves. And they were like, really? So we realized a lot of stuffs out there that actually yeast that farmers are using to apply on cocoa. And year in, year out, the government is crying that production is declining. So if we can group these farmers together, even though they have not been to school, we use their language, we identify with them, I think at the end of the day, we can still amount to something. So that they feel that will be left there. Because I'm actually a bit euphoric with the increase in prices. Because prices of inputs are increasing every day. Yeah, it's bad, but at the same time, it will help us to sieve the good from the bad, those who can stand, those who can persist in the activity. And so when we must have the good ones, we now train them, and with the training that they have obtained, they can now scale up. So that is it.
So when you're talking about chemicals, right? I remember back in those days when my dad and I used to kind of like we had a small garden. I used to really enjoy playing around it. But most of the times we used to kind of like concentrate more on using manure.
Okay.
So now, like, what's the difference between manure and maybe the chemicals that are kind of like imported or the ones that are manufactured? And which one is more efficient, if I may ask?
Okay. The manure that you are talking about is an organic fertilizer.
Okay.
Because what many people usually get it wrong is that they call all of them fertilizers.
Okay.
So when you talk about fertilizers, people need to understand there is organic fertilizer and synthetic fertilizer. And farmers usually say that synthetic fertilizers are not good for their health. And they are moving towards synthetic fertilizers. They want to get those organic ones, which I think it is good. But come to think about it, when you were growing up, the population was not like what we have now. So the number of mouths to feed, they were not as much as what we have now. And so people are increasing every day. The number of mouths to feed are equally increasing. And so there is need for technology to see how we can put things together and increase production. So to me, I usually recommend that people should associate organic and inorganic. But they'll ask, what's the difference? And then I take them back to drugs. I said fertilizer is like what they call the drip, that when you go to the hospital, they put it immediately and you are relieved. And manure is like the tablet. When you take it, you need some time for it to work. So fertilizers, synthetic fertilizers are direct nutrients. So when you apply them on the plant, immediately it releases the nutrients for that plant to absorb. But what is the problem? The problem is when they apply it too much. So it's comparatively to organic fertilizers, the manure, but the manure has humus, which helps to hold fertilizers. So an integrated approach is needed so that you bring manure, smaller quantity, and you equally bring fertilizer in a small quantity, and then you blend. Now the manure will help the fertilizer to retain the fertilizer, prevent it from leaching out, and by so doing the plants will pick the synthetic fertilizers in the long term, and by so doing your crops will do well. Because the number of pigs, the number of chicken, the output that's coming, the physics of those stuff, the manure that we obtain from these stuffs, day in, day out, they are reducing. Yeah. And now with this reduction, not everybody can get manure. People are there in the north, people are there in the northwest, people are there here in the southwest, in the littoral, and those stuffs are bulky. So carrying 100 bags or 500 bags of manure from the southwest to bring in here to cultivate, let's say corn or let's say tomatoes, it will be difficult. But we can reduce that 100 bags to maybe 20 bags, and then we associate it with 20 or 10 bags of fertilizer or 2 bags of synthetic fertilizers, and we'll see have the same output. And when you take these samples, remember I said there's need for soil test. Yeah. And when you take these samples and you send them to the lab, you realize that those stuffs are still certified as organic. So if you use the right dose, you solve all the problems.
More with Elvis after the break. If If you're just joining us today on the Shirlma Show, guess what? Nsoh Fonkwa Elvis has been here with us in the house. Call him the Agronomist. So, Elvis,
Yes, ma'am.
with all this rich knowledge and everything that you've been giving us, okay, so what advice do you have for youths in general and maybe to those thinking of making a career in agriculture? I'm sorry, that number might still increase.
All right, first of all, for the youth who wants to do business.
Okay.
Yes, because I've interviewed a lot of them, and whenever I ask them, why are you not doing something? They say, no, we don't have capital.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first thing is always that we don't have capital. But to me, I think that capital is not a problem. When I was starting my business, I had just 300,000 francs. The money was not mine. It was actually borrowed. So I borrowed the money from my friends. So they gave me the money to do business, but at the same time, they themselves, they were not willing to take the risk. They knew that if I don't pay their money, maybe they can take my bed, take my stuff to the house. So I succeeded not because they gave me the money. I succeeded because I had the idea before. So what I have to say to the youth is that, first of all, they should identify problems in the society, because business evolves through problems. If your business is not solving any tangible problem, then you cannot make it out in business. Yeah. So they should, when they are walking around, they should look at, for example, I think agriculture has a lot of opportunities. When I walk around, I see opportunities in consultation. When I walk around, I see opportunities in marketing. When I walk around, I see opportunities in linking investors to farmers. So all these things is because I look beyond just looking, you know. So let the youth read books, understand Cameroon. They should not just walk around and say, okay, the government is bad, the government is like that. I think Cameroon is the best country. I had an opportunity to go to the US, but I refused. That I want to stay here. I believe the millions that I'm searching for, they are buried here in our country. And so if we can start having confidence in our own stuffs, if we can have confidence in our own agriculture, if we can have confidence in our own government, in our own country, I think we are going to go far. So let the youth build that confidence in whatever thing they are doing. They should believe that they can succeed, and when they have these issues, when these problems keep evolving in the country, they should look at the business opportunities in these problems and they should take advantage of it.
Thank you, Elvis.
Thank you very
Well
much.
said. Okay, so please let's relax a little with some few fun questions. I hope they're fun. Okay, so maybe 1 to answer 3, so you can take any of the questions and feel free. Please, if you want to change, please feel free. You don't necessarily need to even read.
Okay. Question number 1. If you were moving to another country but could only pack one carry-on size bag, what would you pack? Wow. So if I'm going, let's say I'm going to Rwanda today, I'm forced to carry just one thing, just one bag, and what should we have? Very soon I'm writing a book on how to cultivate tomatoes, market gardening crops.
Wow.
And I think in that bag I'll carry some of my books. Yes, I'll carry some of my
business
books.
guy.
Yes, I'll carry my books inside so that I can use to not only sell and make money, but equally to empower the local community.
Great.
Yeah.
Good for you.
So question number 2.
Yeah.
Is wearing a marriage ring a guarantee for fidelity in couples? Man, I think this one is so straight. You know, before I answer this, let me explain what happened this morning.
Okay.
When I got up this morning, because I'm married, and I said, my village people, they are doing well.
Okay.
Because it was only when I was preparing for this show that I searched everywhere for my ring. Yes. Like seriously, I said, but how can I overlook this? Just today that I'm looking for this ring. The thing is always there, but today I searched, I called my wife and said, but Mama, please, have you seen my ring somewhere in the house? She said, no, look at it. I looked at it and did not see it. I really don't think wearing a marriage ring is a guarantee for fidelity. Yeah. I've seen a lot of people who do terrible things with a marriage ring on. Yeah. So this issue of putting on a marriage, fidelity is more of a personality. When you choose to get married to somebody, It's more of a choice. Yeah. And when you must have taken that choice, you equally take it, you equally decide, you equally take it as a stand not to be funny outside. You need to stick to your wife or to your husband with a ring or without the ring. So the ring should not be an indication that, okay, now because I'm putting my ring today, I cannot talk to this lady, I cannot approach this guy. And the day that you don't put on the ring, maybe the mark can still be there. You decide to play funny. So we should desist ourselves from the issue of the ring, but putting on your wedding ring is good, but we should not rely on it. We should educate ourselves to understand our spouse's complexities and understand their in and out. And from there we can live together. I think to me that's what is necessary.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
So question number 3, which university will you recommend for your kids, professional or state, and why? Wow. Yes. All right. My primary school was in a Presbyterian primary school, and when I left Presbyterian primary school, I went to state. That is what they call the GBs, and from the GBs still I went to a state university, and I equally have friends who have spent all their lives in the private institution. I think it's a double-edged sword question, because for you to say, we cannot just conclude that I will send my child to a state university or a state primary school or a private. It depends on how those schools are teaching, how curriculums are being taught in those schools. Because the issue of entrepreneurship, the quest for money have caused so many people to open schools. And when you even look at the salaries that they pay those teachers, 25,000, 30,000, even though they are private schools, but they can never dish out good education to those kids. But now when you come back to, let's say, the public schools, for example, you look at a primary school teacher who's earning 100,000, at least you put in more effort than the private teacher who is being paid 25,000. So I'll always observe and ask myself, how much do they pay the teachers? Is it all right? It's about 50,000 per one. Okay, it's good. And maybe with higher standards, So when we look at big schools here in Douala, and they're paying teachers with 300-something thousand, primary school, those are good schools. If I'm in Douala and I make the money, of course I'll send my children to those schools. So that is it.
Thank you very much, Elvis. It was really fun. Very grateful. So, Elvis, I think some people want to get to you. So how can they reach you, please?
So, number 1, they can get me on Facebook, because I believe my number is on Facebook. Yes, my contacts are on Facebook. And they can equally get me at maybe where I work, because I work with Rainbow Agroscience Limited. Yeah, we are at Bali, 5th floor, DHL building. Yeah, so they can get to our office. I'm the regional sales manager, covering a bit of Southwest in general and Littoral. So if they go to the office, I think the administrative assistant can easily get to me, or they can get to me through Happy Farms. Yes. So if they come to Tiku, Likumba Bridge, they will meet what I've dealt. So from there they can equally request for my number, and we can always connect.
So you mentioned Facebook. What's your Facebook name?
My Facebook name is Nsoh Fonkwa Elvis.
Oh, okay. So Fonkwa Elvis.
Yes, great. I've not changed it.
To be honest, it's really been educative.
Okay.
Yeah, being in your presence, I got to learn a lot. So thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
We are really grateful.
Thank you very much.
On today's edition, we were honored to be in the presence of Nsoh Fonkwa Elvis. Call him the Agronomist.
Thank you.
Thank you for always being here on the Shirlma Show. We are here because you're there. Please do not forget to subscribe, like, and comment on our videos. Thank you.